Hello everyone, Snipey47A here with a review of the new Hathos T6 Warbird Escort that Cryptic have literally just released in the past couple of hours. Now this escort is very different to other escorts that have been released in the past. It's got an extra innate weapon, an extra weapon slot over and above the standard fare, but let's go through it all. Okay, so this is a tier 6 version of the much loved Dhelan Warbird. Has a Lieutenant Commander signs with Intel Operative Bridge Officer slot, so you can run things like override subsystem safeties and that sort of thing. The key thing to this ship, it does come with a Railgun heavy weapon in the heavy weapon slot. So I'll show you what that looks like shortly and where the heavy weapon slot is. The Starship trait is called Hit and Run, and it's buffed to evasive maneuvers. But let's just have a look at the key stats of the ship. So by default comes with plus 10 weapons power, plus 10 engine power. Has a console called the Railgun Destabilizer Module, which we'll look at shortly, can load dual cannons, has the standard Tactical Warbird Mastery, where Tier 1 is accuracy buff. For the Romulan version, Tier 2 is a Singularity gain and Singularity cooldown buff, weapon damage buff at Tier 3, and a critical chance buff at Tier 4. And like all Warbirds, have a base power of 40 on all subsystems and have standard Singularity abilities like Plasma Shockwave, Quantum Absorption, Warp Shadows, and that sort of thing. So let's have a look at the ship itself. Okay, so we've got here, it's got a 4-3 weapons layout and this heavy weapon slot here. Now the console itself comes in Mark 12 very rare, and you have to use cannon upgrades to upgrade it. Okay, so at ultra rare it got critical X, so that was a critical chance and severity, and at accuracy it gets your normal, at epic it gets your normal accuracy and damage. So as you can see here, I'm sitting here with anchored, fully buffed, and that's what it does. Now, in a couple of runs I've did, the weapon itself does about 7,000 to 8,000 DPS. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on that damage because the whole system of the game is about to change soon, so we don't really know what this is going to do until those space changes have gone through. Now, the weapon is actually bugged at the moment. It does heal your enemy for pretty much the damage that it does. Yeah, so as you can see here, Spencer and I are shooting at each other and we're not doing ourselves any damage. And when we do damage each other, and then you can see the Railgun just heals ourselves. Okay, so the console itself has a buff to impulse expertise. It does give a 7.5 max all power to subsystems which do not stack with other subsystem abilities, and that means that you can have your weapons power sitting at 132, for example. See down here, it's at 132. So, and what that console does, it does a railgun barrage. Now this does a fair bit of damage and it doesn't heal. So as you can see here, Spencer and I are attacking each other with that console. The ship itself, okay, is performs much like the Dhelan does. It's quite maneuverable, doesn't have any pilot abilities, and it is it is a decent ship, performs well in everything that I've tested it in so far. But again, since the whole game's about to change, you can't really judge that. But looking at the ship in its base abilities, I think it's a decent ship. The BOF layout is as follows. So you've got you've got a Commander Tactical, you've got a Lieutenant Tactical, you've got a Lieutenant Engineering. Like the Dhelans of old, they are science heavy based on the Bridge Officer ability, which has the Temporal Operative, and you've got a Universal Lieutenant. And finally guys, the trait hit and run. When you activate evasive maneuvers, after it is over, you for 0.6 of a second, I don't know why they chose 0.6 of a second, but you do get plus 75 to bonus damage resist. Now this is the damage resistance that works on a different diminishing returns curve to normal damage resistance. You do get a Cat 2 20% buff for 8 seconds to all your weapons, and your critical chance is set to 30%. So what that actually looks like, so as you can see, I'm sitting here fully anchored. That's my resist at anchored. I'll activate evasive maneuvers. Now that did buff. That did buff my that did buff my damage resist for more than 0.6 of a second, and it did it for the entire length that evasive maneuvers was active. It also buffed my critical chance at the same time. But let's have a look what it does to weapons. So I'll just reset evasive maneuvers, and we'll look at them, all three things that it's meant to do and when it does it. So activating evasive maneuvers now. So it gives a damage resist straight away. Evasive maneuvers is done in 2 seconds. After evasive maneuvers, your critical chance goes up and your damage goes up, but the damage resist is gone. So that is pretty much different to what it says here. Self for 0.6 seconds upon yep. So it does suggest that it happens while evasive maneuvers is active, but for only 0.6 of a second. I'd say that's more like the 6 or 7 seconds that evasive maneuvers is up and running for. And then you've got on the expiration of evasive maneuvers, these two things happen for 8 seconds. So that's pretty much it guys. Here's some footage of the ship in action. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.